Have you ever sent a text to the wrong person and felt your heart drop into your stomach? Now imagine that text was meant for your date, but instead went to your boss, your strict, professional boss who holds your livelihood in her hands. That's exactly what happened to Mark Collins, a single dad juggling life, work, and raising his daughter alone after his wife's passing. What he never expected was that this mortifying mistake would change everything. If you're enjoying this story of unexpected romance and second chances, please hit that like button and subscribe for more heartwarming content that reminds us how life's biggest mistakes can sometimes lead to our greatest blessings. Mark Collins stared at his phone in horror, the blood draining from his face as realization dawned. No, 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 he muttered, frantically tapping at the screen as if he could somehow recall the message that had already been delivered. The text meant for his blind date. Can't wait to see you tonight. Been thinking about your smile all day, had just been sent to Katherine Reynolds, his stern, no-nonsense boss at the architectural firm where he'd worked for the past 5 years. His fingers trembled as he typed a frantic follow-up, I am so sorry, Ms. Reynolds. That message was not meant for you. Please disregard. But the damage was done. The message showed as read with no response forthcoming. Mark collapsed onto his couch, 7-year-old Emma's toys scattered around his feet, and buried his face in his hands. This job was everything, the flexible hours that allowed him to be there for Emma, the salary that kept a roof over their heads, the health insurance they desperately needed. The doorbell rang exactly 5 minutes later. Mark froze. It was Friday evening. He wasn't expecting anyone for another hour when Mrs. Peterson from next door would come to watch Emma while he went on his first date since becoming a widower. Emma was upstairs playing in her room, blissfully unaware of her father's catastrophic texting error. The doorbell rang again, more insistent this time. Mark dragged himself to the door, his mind racing through possible explanations and apologies. When he pulled it open, Katherine Reynolds stood on his porch, her usually perfectly styled blonde hair slightly windblown, her blue eyes intense. She wasn't wearing her typical office attire but jeans and a casual blouse. Mark had never seen her dressed down before. Ms. Reynolds, he began, but she cut him off. You called me Katherine exactly once, at the company Christmas party last year, she said, her voice softer than he'd ever heard it at work. And then you went back to Ms. Reynolds the next day. Why is that, Mark? Mark blinked, completely thrown by the unexpected question. I didn't think it was appropriate. You're my boss. Katherine took a deep breath. Can I come in? I think we need to talk. Mark stepped aside, his mind whirling with confusion. As Katherine entered his modest home, he became acutely aware of the stack of unwashed dishes in the sink visible from the entryway, the basket of unfolded laundry on the coffee table, and the general chaos that came with being a single parent working full-time. I'm sorry about the mess, he said automatically. Emma and I had a rushed morning. Katherine's eyes softened as she took in the evidence of their life, a child's drawing magnetized to the refrigerator, a pair of small pink sneakers by the door, a half-completed puzzle on the dining table. Don't apologize. This is a home. It looks lived in. An awkward silence fell between them until Katherine spoke again. That text, was it meant for a date? Mark felt his face flush with embarrassment. Yes. My first since Lisa died. My neighbor set it up. Said I needed to get back out there. He made air quotes with his fingers, then immediately felt foolish for doing so. Katherine nodded slowly. 3 years is a long time to be alone. Mark's eyebrows shot up in surprise. How did you know it's been 3 years? You requested bereavement leave when I first started as department head. I remember the dates. She paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. I also remember how you came back different. More reserved. But your work never suffered. If anything, you became more dedicated. From upstairs came the sound of small feet running across the floor, followed by Emma's voice calling down, Daddy? Who's at the door? It's someone from work, sweetheart, Mark called back, unsure how to explain Katherine's presence. Can I come meet them? I'm bored. Before Mark could respond, Emma was thundering down the stairs, her dark curls bouncing with each step, a mirror image of her mother. Katherine's face transformed when she saw Emma, a genuine smile replacing her usual composed expression. Hello there, she said, kneeling down to Emma's level. You must be Emma. I'm Katherine. I work with your dad. Emma studied Katherine with the frank curiosity only children possess. Are you Daddy's boss? The one he says is super smart but scary sometimes? Mark wanted the floor to open up and swallow him whole. Emma. But Katherine laughed, a rich, warm sound Mark had never heard before. Yes, that's me. Though I hope I'm not too scary. Emma shook her head solemnly. Daddy says you're fair. That's important. Katherine glanced up at Mark, something unreadable in her expression. Your daddy is right. Being fair is very important. She turned back to Emma. I like your unicorn shirt. Purple is my favorite color too. Emma beamed. Do you want to see my unicorn collection? I have 17. Before Mark could intervene, Katherine nodded. I'd love to, if your dad doesn't mind. Both females looked at Mark expectantly. Sure, he stammered, completely out of his depth. As Emma grabbed Katherine's hand and led her upstairs, Mark stood frozen in the entryway, trying to process what was happening. His boss, the woman known throughout the firm for her exacting standards and cool professionalism, was in his house, being led to his daughter's bedroom to look at unicorn figurines. Mark followed them upstairs, hovering in the doorway as Emma proudly displayed her collection, explaining each unicorn's name and special powers. Katherine listened with genuine interest, asking questions and admiring each plastic figure as if it were a priceless artifact. Mark watched, transfixed by this side of Katherine he'd never imagined existed. When Emma ran to her closet to find a unicorn book she wanted to show Katherine, his boss glanced over at him with a small smile. She's wonderful, Mark. You're doing an amazing job with her. The simple compliment hit him like a physical force. How long had it been since someone had acknowledged how hard he was trying? The constant struggle to be both mother and father, to keep their lives stable and happy despite the gaping hole Lisa's death had left? Thank you, he managed, his voice rough with emotion. Some days I'm not so sure. Katherine's eyes held his. I am. The moment was broken by Emma's return, book in hand. This one has all the different types of unicorns, she explained importantly. The rainbow ones are the most powerful. The doorbell rang again, and Mark checked his watch with a start. That's Mrs. Peterson, he said. I should. Katherine stood up smoothly. Of course. Emma, thank you for showing me your amazing collection. Maybe another time you can tell me more about unicorn powers. Emma nodded enthusiastically. Daddy, can Katherine come back sometime? Mark looked between his daughter and his boss, completely at a loss. That's up to Katherine, sweetheart. Katherine smiled at Emma. I'd like that very much. As they headed downstairs, Mark opened the door for Mrs. Peterson, a kindly woman in her 60s who had been a godsend since Lisa's death. Mark, dear, I'm right on time, oh. She stopped short at the sight of Katherine. I didn't realize you had company. Mrs. Peterson, this is Katherine Reynolds, my boss, Mark explained awkwardly. Mrs. Peterson's eyebrows rose slightly as she took in Katherine's casual attire and presence in Mark's home on a Friday evening. How lovely to meet you, she said, a knowing glint in her eye that made Mark want to disappear. Katherine was just leaving, Mark said quickly. And I need to get ready for, your date, Mrs. Peterson finished for him. With my niece Bethany. Who should be expecting you in about 45 minutes. She turned to Katherine. Unless plans have changed? The awkwardness in the room was palpable. Katherine's expression became unreadable again. No, of course not. I just stopped by to discuss a work matter. I should be going. She turned to Emma, who was watching the adults with curious eyes. Goodbye, Emma. Thank you for showing me your unicorns. Bye, Katherine. Emma said cheerfully, oblivious to the tension. As Katherine moved toward the door, Mark followed her. I'll walk you out. On the porch, with the door closed behind them, Mark finally asked the question that had been burning in his mind. Why did you really come here, Katherine? She looked at him for a long moment, the setting sun casting golden light across her features. When I got your text, I thought it was meant for me. For a moment, I allowed myself to believe. She trailed off, then squared her shoulders. And then your follow-up message made it clear it wasn't. I came here to... I don't know. To see if there was any possibility I wasn't completely misreading things between us. Mark stared at her, stunned. Between us? I didn't think there was anything between us. You're my boss. You've always been so professional, so distant. Because I had to be, Katherine said quietly. Because from the moment you walked into my office 3 years ago, with your quiet strength and your integrity and the way you talked about your daughter with such love, I felt something I shouldn't have felt for someone who worked for me. Mark felt as if the ground beneath his feet had shifted. I had no idea. Katherine smiled sadly. That was the point. She gestured toward the house. You should get ready for your date. Bethany is a lucky woman. As she turned to leave, Mark found himself reaching for her hand. Wait. When she looked back at him, surprise evident in her eyes, he said, What if I canceled? You can't do that, Katherine said, though he could see the hope flaring in her eyes. It wouldn't be fair to her. What if I rescheduled? Told her something came up? Katherine hesitated. Mark, I'm still your boss. This is complicated. Life is complicated, Mark said, feeling more certain with each passing second. I've spent 3 years just surviving, Katherine. Going through the motions. Being a dad, being an employee. But not really living. He took a deep breath. That text was meant for a stranger. But standing here now, I realize I'd rather have dinner with someone who already knows me. Someone Emma already adores, apparently. Katherine's professional facade cracked completely, vulnerability showing through. Are you sure? There would be HR considerations. We'd need to disclose. Mark laughed, the sound surprising both of them. Are we really discussing HR policies on my front porch? Katherine smiled, a full, radiant smile that transformed her face. Occupational hazard. I've spent so long being careful. Maybe we could both be a little less careful, Mark suggested. Just for tonight. The front door opened, and Mrs. Peterson poked her head out. Mark, dear, shouldn't you be getting ready? And Emma wants to know if Katherine can stay for dinner sometime. Mark and Katherine exchanged glances, both fighting smiles. Actually, Mrs. Peterson, Mark said, I need to make a phone call. Plans might be changing tonight. Mrs. Peterson looked between them, satisfaction written all over her face. Well, isn't that interesting? Take your time, dears. Emma and I have a puzzle to finish. She disappeared back inside, closing the door with a decisive click. She's going to be insufferable, Mark groaned. She's been trying to set me up for 2 years. Just not with your boss, Katherine pointed out, but she was smiling. No, Mark agreed, suddenly serious. But maybe that's exactly who I needed all along. As the sun set over the neighborhood, casting long shadows across the lawn, Mark Collins realized that his mortifying texting mistake might just have been the best error he'd ever made. And as Katherine's hand slipped into his, warm and certain, he felt something he hadn't experienced in 3 long years, hope. The weeks that followed weren't without challenges. Mark and Katherine navigated the complexities of their workplace relationship with careful transparency, meeting with HR to disclose their relationship and ensure all proper protocols were followed. Katherine recused herself from decisions directly affecting Mark's position, and they maintained strict professionalism at work. But evenings and weekends became filled with new possibilities. Katherine joined them for movie nights, her laughter blending with Emma's as they built blanket forts in the living room. She helped Emma with her science project, bringing the same focused attention she gave to architectural plans to the creation of a solar system mobile. And she listened as Mark slowly, haltingly, shared stories of Lisa, the good times, the difficult end, and the overwhelming grief that had followed. "I feel guilty sometimes," Mark admitted one night, after Emma had gone to bed. They sat on his back porch, a gentle summer breeze rustling the leaves of the oak tree that dominated the yard. "Like I'm betraying her memory by being happy again." Katherine took his hand, her touch now familiar and comforting. "From everything you've told me about Lisa, she sounds like someone who would want you and Emma to be happy. Who would kick your butt for thinking otherwise." Mark laughed softly. "She would. She was fierce that way." He looked at Katherine, this woman who had entered their lives so unexpectedly. "Emma asked me yesterday if you were going to be her new mom." Katherine's breath caught. "What did you tell her?" "That relationships take time. That we're still getting to know each other. But that I care about you very much, and you care about us." He paused. "Was that okay?" Katherine nodded, blinking back tears. "More than okay. Perfect, actually." She hesitated, then added, "I've never wanted children of my own. Never thought I had what it takes to be a mother. But Emma, she makes me wonder if I was wrong." "You're amazing with her," Mark said. "She adores you." "The feeling is mutual," Katherine replied softly. "And not just for Emma." 6 months after the misdirected text that had brought them together, Mark and Katherine faced their first major challenge as a couple. A prestigious architectural firm in Boston offered Katherine a position that would significantly advance her career: more money, more creative control, more recognition. The kind of opportunity that comes once in a lifetime. "You have to take it," Mark insisted when she showed him the offer letter, though his heart felt like lead in his chest. "This is what you've been working toward your whole career." Katherine set the letter down on his kitchen table. "It would mean moving. Leaving you and Emma." "We could try long distance," Mark suggested, not believing it himself. "Or maybe in a year or two, Emma and I could join you." "A year or two," Katherine repeated. She looked around the kitchen where they'd shared so many meals, where Emma had proudly shown her how to make pancakes in the shape of unicorns, where Mark had first kissed her after their third date. "That's a long time." "It is," Mark agreed, his voice rough. "But I would never ask you to give up this opportunity. I know how hard you've worked for it." Katherine was quiet for a long moment. "When I was 30, all I wanted was to be the youngest partner at a top firm. When I was 35, all I wanted was to have my name on award-winning designs. Now I'm 40, and I find myself wanting different things." "Like what?" Mark asked. "Like Sunday mornings with pancake batter everywhere. Like helping with homework and arguing over bedtimes. Like watching you coach Emma's soccer team in the rain." She took a deep breath. "Like being part of a family." Mark's heart stuttered. "Katherine. I'm going to turn it down," she said firmly. "Some opportunities only come once in a lifetime, but they're not all about career advancement.